Welcome in, everybody. It's another episode of A Nichols Worth right here on however you are watching Facebook, YouTube. Are you on X watching? I don't know. We're going to be talking about you if you are. Today, I am your host, Keaton Nichols, as always, of course, joined by my good friend, Jovan Alford, and frequent contributor to the show and co-host. Welcome, sir, to the show. How you feeling, man?
Feeling all right. I'm feeling good. Glad to be back on. As always, it's been a minute since I think we did a last show. I'm trying to remember what was happening in politics the last time
Man,
we were
I
doing
don't
this show.
even know. What was it like? It was the middle of December, and
I think we were talking about third parties, right?
yeah, the third party conversation, and we had a conversation about media after that as well.
Yup.
Two very good conversations that folks, if you're listening in right now and you're saying, wow, I'm already impressed with the first 30 seconds of the show, where can I get more? Check out my Facebook page, Keaton Nichols, Keaton D. Nichols on Facebook. You can also check out our YouTube and our Spotify pages as well. Just look up A Nicholsworth Pod, Pod, A Nicholsworth Pod, for some more. Speaking of, before we get into the nitty of the gritty, let's explain how this podcast works. Of course, this will be available for viewing after it is done recording today, but we encourage all those that are tuned in live right now. We appreciate you, first of all, for taking time out of your day to come in and listen to two guys talk about politics today. As well, please do us a favor. You get extra points. This is very important, folks. You get extra points if you share the live link to the page, and if you also comment or ask questions during the course of the podcast, give us a little something to chew on here as well. You also get bonus points. So make sure you are locked into the pod. Make sure you are sharing the pod however you are listening, and we appreciate you. We greatly appreciate you. In this mediascape, Jovan, we're going to talk a little bit about media today, a little bit about social media, a little bit about some of the influences and things that are going around as well. So it goes a long way to have folks joining in this conversation that we don't want, obviously, to be torn in one direction or the other in terms of how our content is. We just want to bring the facts to the case. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So we encourage folks to get involved. Jovan, let's get right into it. Let's dive right in. It's been a little while since we've been here. I actually made a comment to my mom. We were discussing, my mom is a great political ally to have. We talk about all different types of stuff as well. One of the things that you had mentioned, the last time that we did a show, we were kind of in the midst of a lot of transition here. Donald Trump on his way in after having won the presidential election in November, and all the things that would sort of mean. How are we going to analyze this going in when we have a media system that a lot of people have lost faith in? There was a report, what is that, about midway through December, actually, Stephen Colbert had commented on this on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, that people aren't really interested in following politics the way that they were in the month or two previous to the actual election, and the type of energy and the discussion that we had around Kamala Harris and what direction is this country going in? Are we going back to Trump and all these other things? That conversation has died down and completely out at this point, as many Americans seem like they're kind of sick of the back and forth conversation, especially that came up around the election itself. People are kind of cooling down at this point, and some new realities are starting to settle down onto us.
Yeah, no, it's definitely seemed like that. Like the lead up to the election, like everybody was tuned in, locked in, like really like following, everything. Like people are watching everything on the TVs, the debates, they're reading the polls, they're doing all the things that people always do. And then as we got to the election and after that, for like you said, everybody either they were sick and they just checked out and they say catch you in the new year, or they just went about back to their regularly scheduled program, and they just said, "Hey, man, I'm just going back to it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do."
Yep, we're just going to do it because it's a lot. It's a lot. The whole idea of misinformation, which we'll talk about today, is kind of coupled to me with the idea of too much information, right? Like if you have too much going on, I think that people get inundated, overstimulated. Yeah, whatever the word is that you want to use with a lot of the information that's going on. Now that the results are settled, the president is going to be in place coming in here in about a week? Yeah, a week is the inauguration. I think a lot of that conversation has died down. What doesn't need to die down is how we pay attention to what is going on here. The way that we've gotten our news, or that we've begun to get our news, in recent months and in recent years has certainly shifted, and that's why we're having these conversations like we're having today, because we need to keep up on this. This is not about being politically on one side of the ball or the other. Those conversations get tired, they get old,
Yeah.
and they're not productive at all. How we pay attention to what's happening in our country and how we as people take action beyond that, I think, is everything, especially in the United States, where this country is supposed to be run by the people, right? It's supposed to be run by the people. So let's get into it. The people of California this week, obviously, these past couple of weeks, have been tormented by wildfires, especially in the Los Angeles area, consuming huge chunks of land there. 24 people, at least at this point, have been killed by these fires. Hundreds rather of people have been, thousands of people have been displaced, rather, thousands of structures destroyed as well. The kind of wildfire that seems to stick out from the yearly wildfires that pop up in the California area, if nothing more than the idea that it's affecting a much higher populous area. LA is probably the biggest city in the United States, if I'm not mistaken, by population. New York might have it in terms of like density, people per square inch kind of thing, but LA is huge. There's a lot of people that are there and a lot of people that are affected by this fire. And we were reminded again this week that misinformation and disinformation can be harmful to the recovery efforts of natural disasters that can happen, like this, natural disasters or just disasters, man-made disasters in this particular case, and how aid then gets to the people that need that aid. Gavin Newsom, who is the governor of California, you may see his name in Democratic ventures moving forward for how they want to kind of include him in things. That's a story for another podcast.
Another day. Yep.
Gavin Newsom right now trying to keep it all together, and he's saying, look, we need to be a leader. We need leadership in moments like this, plain and simple. What we have going down in these moments from the incoming presidential administration, by the way, no surprise here, has been a series of criticisms and insults about the way that California does business, the way that Gavin Newsom, as a Democrat leader in California, how he has done business as well, and has led to a lot of false information being spread about this, including Trump writing that Newsom is grossly incompetent, that the diversity initiatives of the state, for example, have led to these catastrophic results, which Newsom argues is polarizing the efforts to get these people help. And if this story sounds familiar, Jovan, it's because we've seen this happen time and time again with either President Donald Trump, candidate Donald Trump, regular citizen Donald Trump. We've seen this in a lot of different ways, but it's at the basis and at the core. This is misinformation that is now directly hurting people for the incoming leader of the United States. This is a bad sign here.
Yeah, no, it's a huge bad sign, because the fact that the guy who's supposed to step in and be taken over as president for his second term, or the lame duck term, right, stepping in, is the one spouting off misinformation. Like, you're supposed to be the guy that's supposed to bring calm and do the things that hey, we're going to work together, we're going to we support the people in California, like taking that approach, the more PC presidential approach, like we're going to do
very easy to do,
right,
too,
we're going to work. Or you say I was in contact with Governor Newsom, we're going to try to work on figuring things out. No, he's completely taking it to a whole different level, doing the whole name calling shtick, on True Social, calling him new scum. Like, we know he likes to do the whole
like he's 6 years old,
making fun, do the whole 6-year-old 6-year-old trip. So when you see that, it just elevates a lot of the narrative, I think, that we've seen come out of this. This is an entirely different situation that we obviously won't talk about tonight, but even down to the tragic event that happened down in New Orleans, where instead of talking about the situation at hand, they were making it even as a political football to try to push a narrative that wasn't there, right? The migrant thing like this. So now you come back full circle to here. We're talking about the LA wildfires. They're making this a DEI conversation, which has nothing to do with trying to evacuate thousands of people that are displaced and, you know, trying to help them
Or bring
rebuild
aid
and, you
in,
know,
right?
bring aid in. No, we're talking about DEI in the department and white men and
What? Not enough
just
white
a
male firefighters apparently going on.
according to Scott Jennings, my most favorite political commentator. Not really, but you have all this stuff going on, and it just goes away from the narrative, which should be about the actual people in
Right.
Los Angeles.
Very simple. Very simple. It's a time to come together and help these folks out. Now, you know, this, you know, is particularly disturbing, I think, you know, for no other reason than why is this happening? We have to ask ourselves, are these people just bored? Are there individuals? Is new MAGA, because this is who I'm looking at, right? I call them MAGA. I think that new MAGA should be separated from traditional conservative Republicans. We can have a conversation about traditional political conservative values and maybe how they run afoul from what you might believe in. But what we're dealing with new MAGA oftentimes is this kind of conversation. The one that leaves us at, you know, with our hands kind of up saying, what the hell are we talking about right now? For those of you that maybe had missed some of the criticism that was there, essentially what new MAGA conservatives are saying right now, the Make America Great Again, the Donald Trump bum sniffers, if you will, of the Republican Party, what they're attempting to sort of frame here, the picture that they're trying to frame, is that we once had a country that looked and felt and was very different. At one time, we had this country, and now in the last, and I'm going to say from 2008 or so to 2016, Barack Obama's presidency, for those uninitiated, from that period of time, we lost. This is what conservatives are saying. We lost the country.
Yep.
During that period of time. And what you're seeing right now, when you see all this misinformation and you're seeing these platforms that are running afoul of telling fact or sharing facts and things like that, what we're seeing is an attempt from conservatives to get the country back to what it was before all the liberals got loose and started allowing gay marriage and started allowing black and brown faces to be in main, you know, stages. It started slowing down the effects of well, I was going to say some gentrification efforts, but that's on both sides of the ball. But started slowing down some of those things that we saw conservatives kind of taking a lead on. We saw during the course of the Barack Obama administration, a lot of those things beginning to reverse. A lot of those trends, those cultural trends beginning to reverse. And the new MAGA that we see here today really stems from a group of people that are upset at the way that the country changed during that period of time, how liberal, if you will, the country got, and how open and accepting of many different groups that the country got during that time, including immigrants, including gay people, including people of color, including all these groups that were previously marginalized before that, right? They saw the country turn into this country that welcomed all of those groups, and they lost their minds.
Yeah.
They lost their minds. They started freaking out. Oh my goodness, what kind of country are you going to have if we can't say this and we can't call people that and we can't say this in public because it's no longer, you know, a trend. This is what the conservatives are upset about. This is what they're pushing back against. When we see all of this misinformation, we're seeing all these ridiculous people saying California wildfires are here because there's not enough white firefighters. It's so ridiculous, but that's the idea. We used to have a country where most of the firefighters were white. Everyone was okay with that. You know, who cares if the majority of everything is white men that, you know, that have the power? We were okay with that. And now we don't have a country that looks like that anymore. So we are going to throw a fit. We are going to throw a fit. That to me is a huge problem. And it, to me, Jovan, is the engine. It is the driver, the hearthstone, if you will, of this movement of what we're seeing here to intentionally push false information about stuff like this into the public sphere and let it spread, for lack of a better term, like wildfire.
Yeah, no, it is. And these takes and things grow life on platforms like Meta, but also on X, which is ran and run by Elon Musk. These talking points are, you know, blown up and, you know, inflated on social media and Twitter and stuff like that. And then those same talking points are then pushed out on television, right in front of the masses, to where you have, again, I'm going to keep on picking on them. You have people like Scott Jennings who will go on TV and will repeat the same things that you hear on social media, you just look at these things and it just doesn't make sense, right? And you look at what Elon Musk, and when we talk about just the LA wildfires and what he's even doing and being involved in, when we talk about the whole the country, minorities and things like that, and this is a pushback towards that. He goes, DEI means people die, right? In response to a video, this from Rolling Stone story, right? Posted on X, last week in response to a video of LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley discussing how she wants to diversify the department. Musk also responded true to a post from a conspiracy theorist, Alex Jones, about the wildfires being part of a larger globalist plot to wage economic warfare and deindustrialize the United States before triggering total collapse. He then later deleted this response.
There you go. He deleted that responce. Like, oops, sorry, no, guys didn't say this. I'm allowed to say it whenever I feel like I want to say it, but once it, So this is, this is the big issue when we talk about these sort of things. Why is this going down? This intentional misdirection is absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous. But to your point, now traditional, formerly at least, reliable media sources are now echoing the sentiments of the content, the information that we're getting from social media. Let's not forget that not too long ago, this would have been a completely absurd thing, right? For the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the Fox Newses of the world, the pillars of cable news, the pillars of regular news, for that matter, taking cues and taking notes from things that they saw online. It's an absurd concept, right? Or from social media content creators, it's an absurd concept. We have lost, we talked about this in our media episode, go back and watch it or listen to it, however you want to do it, because we talked about this very thing. We have lost the faith and the integrity that we have in traditional news sources. And so therefore, we as a people are now starting to go to anybody that has a microphone and a camera or anything else like that. We are now going to these people to rely on where we get our news and information from as a core. That's not good. That is not good. These people could be literally making up anything. And as we've seen in this past week, just as an example, they quite literally are.
Look at Fox News and look at, for anybody, I don't know how many people that are listening, watching the show right now watch Fox News or watch Jesse Waters, right? This man is a habitual line stepper of pushing the fake narrative and pushing all this misinformation, disinformation that you just wouldn't believe. And I shared, I think it was on, I want to say it was Friday, and I shared a video of Jesse Waters, on his show saying, LA is hosting the Olympics in 4 years. There's no way we can showcase LA to the world. A full federal takeover is needed. Invoke the staff for that, martial law, like just saying like all these wild things. And you're like, who would believe this type of stuff? But they're catering to a base that will believe that and say, you know what? I didn't think about that. Maybe we should get martial law involved because the black mayor is not doing her job. And the water, the states run out of water, because that's also something else they ran with, states running out of water. Or you have the likes of Matt Walsh, another right-wing commentator that this Rolling Stone article points out, saying that Los Angeles deliberately set out to exclude white men from becoming firefighters. Or Megyn Kelly, who's just, she is what she is at this point, right? Accusing the fire chiefs and Karen Bass of prioritizing DEI over the city's, fire management, capabilities, saying that the fire chief has not made filling the fire hydrant a top priority. Like, there was a point last week where they were running with this narrative that the fire hydrants aren't full. And there was, I think, there was a lady that was talking to Gavin Newsom about that, saying like, why are the fire hydrants filled?
Yeah, she actually thinks that there's not enough water. This poor lady thinks that there's not enough water in the freaking ground. It's so absurd.
Meanwhile, there's billionaires in California that have cornered the water space, that have stock in Fiji and all this stuff. Like, come on, let's be real here.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we mean. You guys can get in on the conversation too. Just want to remind you, if you guys have something you want to add into the conversation, please do, because there's a lot to say here. I think that to that point, it becomes confusing. like I said, for a lot of people to process this stuff. If traditional news sources are not relied upon as traditional news sources anymore, then this is the kind of thing that can happen. We can have a lot of misinformation that is running amok. One of the platforms, of course, that is popular for almost spreading information, almost sounds bad nowadays, but
Right.
for sharing clips, for sharing posts, of course, is Meta, the company that owns Facebook, Instagram, that new Threads app, if you're on that kind of
Yeah.
thing too. So Meta, this past week, they made an announcement through company owner Mark Zuckerberg. Well, I guess he's the founder. I guess you could say Meta is technically the owner of Facebook right now, whatever the heck that means. But anyway, they made an announcement this week that they will implement major changes to its moderation policies. Amongst those changes, according to Al Jazeera, Meta's use of fact-checking organizations will end, abolished, and the group will switch to a system of community notes, which is similar to what we see on the platform X. Now, this made some headlines for a number of reasons. First of all, Mark Zuckerberg looked like he was tweaked out when he made this video.
Yo, man.
We are not going, I promise we are not going to go in and on Mark Zuckerberg, even though we should, during the course of this video, which had so much content in it, so much stuff in it. But essentially, what he said is that no, they are no longer going to use these third-party sort of companies to essentially monitor and censor, the way that he used it, content that comes across Facebook's platform, which was interesting to me, Jovan, because I don't really particularly remember Facebook's fact-checking algorithm being a huge part of my experience. I don't
Right.
know how much you're on Facebook either, but I didn't really notice it being put into place. So the announcement that this was now going to be removed came as news to me. A, what the heck were they doing before? I thought that this was interesting. What was the fact-checking process? We did a slight bit of digging, and thanks to Al Jazeera for explaining this one. Presently, this is how it works, right? Presently, social media platforms like Facebook and Threads use third-party fact-checking organizations to verify the authenticity and accuracy of content posted on each platform. These organizations evaluate content and flag misinformation for further scrutiny. So what happens is when a fact checker determines a piece of content to be false, Meta then would take action to substantially limit that piece's content reach, ensuring that it reaches a significantly smaller audience. So that was new for me, Jovan, because actually the fact checking policy that Meta has in place, or had rather in place, did not remove or delete content that it deemed to be false, which
No,
I have to ask,
it just limited from a larger grasp of people to go see and watch it.
if Russell Wilson was Mr. Unlimited, right? The Facebook fact checking was Mr. Limited,
Very.
right? They're not going to take your post down if it's wrong. If you say that January 6th was started by terrorists in the Middle East, they're not going to take your post down. They are simply going to limit its reach. They're simply going to limit its outreach, where that post can be seen other places on Meta, or on Facebook rather. So that's the first important point. That's even if the content itself was flagged, which
Right.
it didn't happen in a lot of instances according to this as well. So you have a lot going on here from the announcement from Zuckerberg, Mr. Zuckerberg, essentially saying, yeah, we're done with the fact checking. We had a third party that was taking care of it anyway, but now we're done with the fact checking thing. We're not going to do that. Also, Donald Trump, here's $100 million. And also, we're going to be doing some other things to the website. Like, it was like, wait a minute. Hang
Right.
on. If the fact checking that we had in place was effectively ineffective, for lack of a better term, why even implement this new policy? Why even go back now and say, never mind, we want to, according to his words, go back to the roots of Facebook, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah,
We're gonna go back to the roots.
what does that mean?
We're going to go back to the roots of Facebook here and back to the original kind of thing going on here. We're going to wipe out all fact checking and allow people to express freely on the platform as intended. Now, this comes as an absurd notion for a number of reasons here. First of all, back to the origin of Facebook. Well, I think that that's interesting that he's referencing what Facebook was originally intended for, which was, we were just throwing it back here before the show, Jovan, and remembering what did I use Facebook for? That's right. Used to post pictures of, vacations and,
It was literally a social network.
a social network. Like, I don't know if people remember MySpace, but, something similar to that
The
was an
competitor to
advancement
that.
on that. Yeah, yeah. It was like a continuation of that. And people could interact. They could post pictures. It was nice and fun, right? At some point, things became a lot more political on Facebook. I can remember certainly whenever it became political for me, it was Trayvon Martin, right? There was a conversation. I was 21 years old when that happened. 21, 22, something like that years old. And that's what drew me into the conversations a lot of times about what was going on is the stuff that I would
Right.
see on social media. People would post things and I said, whoa, I can't believe somebody just posted that. And here's the response to it, right? We would get involved in this deep Facebook discourse, about X, Y, and Z. That's when things kind of got political for me. But the platform itself was never intended, Jovan, to be a news organization, right? Like, am
No.
I viewing this right? You're very familiar with X and Meta as well. You're on there a little bit more than I am. But these platforms never intended to be, sort of these purveyors of news and information, at least from the very beginning, right? Like, that's not how I interpreted this.
Yeah, no, they were never. I think when these social networks got created, I don't think they were seen to be viewed as like bastions of like spreading information, right? I think it was for the purpose of, like you said, social networking, right? Facebook was supposed to be the new competitor to upgrade over MySpace, right? Where you can talk to people, where you can share photos and do all these, type of things, play games, right? Because remember that was a huge thing on there once upon a time, playing games. Yeah,
before they stole all your data.
Right.
It's a separate podcast.
Come on now. Come on. So that was that purpose. And even when Twitter first happened, Twitter was just a place where people were posting quick thoughts, and what was it, like 160 characters, something like that?
160 characters. I remember
160
character
160
tweets. Yeah.
characters. You just get your tweet out, you keep it pushing. But then I think that's when we saw, okay, news organizations are now using social media platforms to now put out information. And that's when these platforms start to become pushers of information, because now people are looking towards these platforms for their information, right? People are looking towards Meta, for better, for worse, for their go-to for information.
Yeah.
People are looking towards Twitter for the information, because why? I can get the information quick. I can get it in a snapshot. I can get it real quick. The same thing with TikTok, right? I can get the information. I can get it. I can watch whatever clip I need in a 30, 45-second video. So I think they didn't start off as these things, but now they've developed into these things, and they don't understand. I don't want to say they don't understand the power they do have, because I think they obviously do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they never saw it would take off like this.
Right.
But now, with them not having no guardrails on this whole idea of fact checking or community notes, like, now things have become the Wild Wild West, where various accounts, Elon Musk, Alex Jones, very deep right-wing conspiracy conservative platforms are getting pushed and pushing misinformation, and there's nothing these platforms are going to do about it.
Absolutely. I mean, and we've lost that. We got Julian commenting in on the YouTube. Shout out to Julian for listening on the YouTube. You can go there, youtube.com/A Nicholsworth. That's how you can follow the page. He says, as far as I'm concerned, X and all that was supposed to be a way to post what you are thinking and maybe give life updates, especially Facebook. Right. That's how I interpreted it too. That's how I viewed it as well. There were certain points in the timeline, no pun intended again there, where social media companies tried to verify certain accounts. They tried to essentially elevate certain accounts to be essentially seen as higher than, or more
status of importance.
There you go. More important than your average poster, right? There's Bob, who works at the hardware store 5 days a week. He listens to the news. He comments on the news. But then there's Bob Woodward, who is a esteemed of over 40 years journalist who has done very many important things in journalism, who would have the little blue check, right? Or he works for NBC, which is a verified account, or something, whatever it is, right? So there were these attempts by social media companies, I think, to elevate elevate certain voices and certain, organizations, if you will, as being more factual than just your typical person. But that was about as far as it went in terms of trying to distinguish social media as a reliable source for information. My argument is that never was social media a place where we could verify the information straight from the source of it being on social media.
Yep.
News is still news. Social
Yes.
media is still social media. Those worlds sometimes cross and blend, but they are never the same. Facebook is never going to be, X is never going to be, Instagram is never going to be a source of news. It is going to be a place where you can get news. And that is an important distinction, right? A platform.
Right. It's supposed to be a platform, but the two worlds have now collided.
The two worlds have now collided.
And converged, and the people that are running these platforms are okay with that converging because of what they are getting out of it.
Correct, and a correct again. Now, to talk a little bit about the transition, if you will, of the ownership of formerly known as Twitter. I keep wanting to call it Twitter. It's so stupid. I
still call it Twitter.
The takeover of X, from Elon Musk becomes like this really big deal then, because as these platforms are trying to and attempting to have some sort of guardrails, to your earlier point on the conversations that are going on their platforms, you now have a purchase of one of the biggest, probably the most significant single line, news commenting or content commenting platform out there, being Twitter. Of the decade, easily. And that is purchased by somebody that has enough money to buy it. It doesn't matter if it was a good investment, if that platform is continuing to make him money. A lot of people have said, oh, he's losing money. It's his own fault. He played himself. Well, guess what? He's still in control of it. And the bigger effect is any of the hate speech and any of the bad, let's say the bad behavior that was going on these social platforms before is now completely off the rails as well. And Jovan, I know that you're somebody that uses X a lot, Twitter. You've used it pretty much since its inception, but you can probably speak to the palpable difference that you can see between what Twitter was, and what X now is in terms of hate speech and algorithmed posts that are showing up on your timeline.
Yeah, I think it's completely different from when we all probably first joined in that 08, 09. Like, I think probably all of us were probably in junior year, high school, senior year, high school, like around that 08, 09. Where
Shout out millennials out there.
It was a very just good time on Twitter. But now, like you said, with Elon taking over, the algorithm has completely changed. You see more conservative, right wing, even Elon posts starting to fill the algorithm more. Like, you don't even have to be following Elon Musk, and on your For You page, which they have on Twitter, on both the desktop and the mobile version, you're seeing his tweets pop up, and you may not be following him, or you may be watching a video on X, and there's a video next coming up flying on your page is a video clip from Alex Jones, who was once upon a time banned off of the platform because of what he did in the lies and stuff that he was spouting about the Sandy Hook, tragedy. He gets back on the platform because Elon Musk allows him to back on the platform, and now you have a situation where they don't have a fact-checking program. They have more community notes, which is what Mark Zuckerberg is going to start using. But this report from the AP, from the nonprofits, from the nonprofit for the Center for Countering Digital Hate, analyzed the community notes feature, and this story came out before the election. It was October 30th.
Before the election, right?
And they found out that the community notes feature found that accurate notes correcting false and misleading claims about the elections were not displayed on 209 out of a sample 283 posts that deemed misleading, 74%. And they said that the misleading posts that did not display community notes, even when they were available, included false claims that the 2020 presidential election was stolen and that voting systems are unreliable. Like, that was still happening before the election, and even the guy that's about to take over as president, he still doesn't
acknowledge that, right?
Still doesn't acknowledge it. So when you have this type of situation and Elon Musk taking it over, you see why there's also been a dip in the platform, why people are getting off the platform, while people are going to the alternative of like a Blue Sky, which seems much more moderated and, you know, better platform, because people don't want to see a whole bunch of misinformation and false news. But sad to say, even though there's been this migration from people on X to Blue Sky of like over 25 million people join the platform, X still have the control on it. And granted, like you said, Keaton, people might say, well, Elon's tanked the value of X and, you know, he's lost money. Why would he care about that, right? Because now he's used this platform to leverage the political gain and the gain that he can get out of it, which is, I got this made up, created fake office called Doge, named after the damn coin, like the Department of Government Efficiency, whatever the hell that's supposed to do. I was able to use that to leverage that attempt and now leverage it to be within the administration, to now leverage that I created. And I don't think people understand this, created a whole political pack, the America PAC, through the social media platform that was able to then funnel a whole bunch of millions of dollars in cash into a campaign towards the end that was also giving away money to people, millions of dollars. Like, I don't think people get and understand like how this all just ecosystem and cycle just all comes together. Granted, did he not did he tank the platform's value? Yes, but what did he get out of it in the end? He's got a full-fledged platform where conservatives feel like they can say whatever they want. They won't be deplatformed unless you're Laura Loomer, because they have a beef going on. But that's besides the fact, right? But he has a full-fledged platform where people that are on the fringes, or that believe that they're on the fringes, or believe that their voice is not being heard, that are going to get pumped. And at the same time, he's created, like I said, got in the wrong administration. He's created a political PAC called America that he was able to funnel.
Not an American, by the way, Elon Musk, not an American citizen, but
not an American citizen, able to funnel cash into a campaign, and it's going to keep that a PAC because, hey, if there are going to be Republicans that are going to be running against MAGA Republicans, I can now use that PAC as a weapon to get what I want. So come on. You got to understand, there
are bigger fish being fried.
It's bigger fish being fried, in addition to the misinformation and the videos and the commentary that's being elevated. More and more of people just saying just dumb shit and nonsense about DEI when there's wildfires going on, talking about Canada 51st state, Greenland takeover, like
in Panama Canal and
Panama Canal and Gulf of Mexico becoming Gulf of America. Like, come on, like, we got to be real and we got to understand what's happening at play right now.
We got to stay awake. That word woke has been just bastardized in American media these days, of course, by many on the right side of things. We have to stay aware of what is going on, right? The big headline this week, of course, came with this idea that fact-checking is now being removed from the process, as if the fact-checking was put in place to begin as any sort of protection here. We have to look at this as the bigger fish that are being fried here. Mark Zuckerberg, rich guy, owns, for lack of a better term, runs and owns a platform that influences and impacts the way that a lot of people view news and information. Same thing with X and Elon Musk with Twitter.
And then Zuckerberg says this stuff a couple weeks before Trump gets back in administration. And then Zuckerberg goes on Joe Rogan to talk about these things. Like, come on, like
it's all connected within that. What is significant about this? If people were to take some sort of significant action out of this, or what should we do in response to this? Here's what I think that we will remind you again of, right? Social media is what it has always been. It is always been a platform where anybody can say anything. Okay. On the other side of things, I know news to be what news is, right? Both of us went to journalism school, right? And it doesn't take a journalism major to figure out what news is, but we'll break it down anyway for you. It's facts. It's real things that really happened to real people in real situations. That's what news is, right? That's what journalism is. That's what goes behind a lot of this that we see. Okay? Yeah, it can sometimes include some other things, but that's what news is. Okay? Social media is a place where you can say anything. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, or you say something racist or insensitive. That's what social media is. Okay, news, facts, a set core of information, facts that remains unchanged. Okay, what we can do ourselves a favor of is we can stop conflating the two. We can stop
Yes.
mixing these two platforms. When you see something on social media, do not take that as fact. You can't take that as fact. You can't take that as fact, even if it ends up being true. That's fine, but we should not be going to these places to gather our news. And
Yes.
then we should not be taking the content that we get from social media and then spreading it further into other more
Yes.
serious spaces
Yes.
to discuss. You shared that clip with me before the show about Jasmine Crockett, who I'm a big fan of, by the way, in Congress, and she's chewing out your boy
Scott Jennings.
Scott Jennings, yeah. He's chewing him out on CNN because he's talking about some narrative that Donald Trump and the
And
the
he
far-
does
the
it. And
conservatives
he does it
are repeating.
consistently. He's does it consistently every time he's on television. And where is he getting these views? Where is he getting these talking points
from the internet, from other crazies on the internet, right? And now he's bringing it onto a serious platform of CNN and having a serious discussion with another, congressperson on this show about nothing, about whether white men are needed, more white men are needed to put out the fires, or more water in the hydrants, or whatever the dumb crap is going on here. These are absolutely ridiculous arguments, and to bring them into serious spaces to have serious discussions about ridiculous things only furthers this notion that the stupid things that we see on the internet are actually true. That the silly things that we see on the internet are actually true. What Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk have clearly displayed is a complete and total disinterest in drawing any sort of line between those two concepts of news and information that you just see, out there on the internet. They have completely absolved themselves of responsibility. Another rich guy, Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, made headlines this most recent election by not allowing his editorial staff to endorse Kamala Harris. I mean, what? That's absurd. Like, that is an absurd notion. But what we see is these rich guys that are buying up these platforms as a way of spreading content instead of news. Once content becomes the standard for information that we have, it doesn't matter what is true and what is not. Okay, that's the importance behind the conversation that we're having here. We are attempting to protect some aspect of truth. Okay. Yep. Those post-apocalyptic movies and books and stories and everything where the world descends into chaos, what is oftentimes the catalyst behind that? Somebody takes over and says, hey guys, nothing else matters, and the world descends into chaos. We are seeing that right now. When platforms that are responsible for the spread of information now at this point, because news organizations or whatever, have said, we don't care whether the information you put on our websites are true or false. We don't even care about policing it. We don't care about what effects that has once people are spreading that. Then we have completely lost control at that point. We have completely lost control. We as a people now have to be better than. We have to be smarter than. We have to be ahead of. We have to be more awake than the people who have been entrusted with taking care of these big, huge media conglomerates, social media conglomerates, because they will not look after that information. They will not amend how they do business to make it fair and free for everybody.
No, and why would they, right? Why would they care about the information? And this comment here is exactly the truth. Like he said, I think Mark is trying to play cool with the White House for potential executive orders and future societal implementation. Yes, like. Why would I care about fact checking or anything like that when I can push whatever I'm trying to push and get forward, or try to use that some like political power play to do whatever I want to do with my said, company, just so I'm not in the bullseye of, Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Bezos.
It's a cowardice move.
It's the same thing with Bezos. Bezos didn't want them to obviously give the endorsement of Harris because he didn't want to be in the bullseye of Trump.
Right. And, let's say Donald Trump wins and he endorses Harris. Now he's going to get that special favor. We know that Donald Trump is a very much so a grown kid when it comes to his
very
political
vindictive
acumen, or very vindictive, very, very petty in that way. And again, I'm trying not to say that as a criticism or like I'm on one side of this or the other. I'm just calling it like I see it here. I think that
Right.
that is a very sort of petty thing. But as you can see, that money talks power is oftentimes associated with those that have a ton of money. But we do live, thankfully, in a country where the only thing that can usurp that is the will of the people. The people, right? Like this is why we emphasize things like this. This is why we have these conversations. These individuals may be powerful on their own with their money. They may be doing very powerful things, but it is never more powerful than the collective will and power of the people. That's it. We can always be smarter. We can always be above where these organizations are going. It doesn't mean that we have been. I don't think that we have been up until this point. I think that we have fallen into a great many traps as the public. We have loosened a lot of regulations. We've allowed a lot of things to happen, and allowed a lot of things to become normalized in this environment. But it doesn't mean that we are beneath this, that we are too stupid to figure this stuff out. As we look at this Facebook ban, or these most recent actions by Facebook to remove fact checking and things like that, we can be better than that. We can be our own fact checkers. And I think that is how we get through this politically dark period of time where there's nobody coming to rescue anybody at this point, right? There are no magical congressmen. There is no Barack Obama that's going to pop up out of the sewers and say, all right, don't worry, everybody. I got you. Like that's not happening.
Not happening.
That's not happening. So we as a people have to get tougher about the things that we pay attention to too. I believe that we are capable of doing that. I wouldn't be doing the show with you, Jovan, if I didn't believe that the people have the ability to be better than that. But we have to pay attention. We gotta stay woke, man. We gotta stay woke.
Yo, it's the truth. Each one teach one. Like, don't if you see your friend sharing something that you know don't make no sense and that's out of pocket, like try to give them some, something that's give them the correct information. Like, don't let them run around spinning these narratives that X, Y, and Z is happening, and when you know it ain't true, right? Like, help
It's
each
just
other
a social
out.
responsibility. I think that we all have to have at this point. A social responsibility.
You got to, because like we talked about on the show, right? The social media platforms aren't going to do that, right? Their goal is to do whatever they want, if they make money off of it, cool. But their goal is to not try to help the American people or people around the world to be like, hey, like, this is not good information. You shouldn't be checking this out. No, they have an end goal, and is not to help inform people. If anything, it's been more so to misinform people, to then have a distrust of what they're seeing, to make it seem like some people don't know what they're talking about.
This, at the end of the day, and we'll wrap here in a second. I did want to throw this in, though. It is very divisive language. These are things that are meant for people to be standing in opposite corners of the country. These are things that are further going to separate people from being here. There's a lot of themes about this country that I could argue you down for from the beginning of history that have been wrong about the way that America has done business, the things that America has done to certain American citizens or those that have lived on American, quote unquote, American soil before that. We can go on. They have several podcasts about the criticisms of what America is and what it has meant. But one of the things that I think is important for us to cling on to, a few things I should say, is the idea that America is constantly evolving. From the inception of whatever we consider to be America to right now, it has constantly been evolving. If there's any hope that you have as an American citizen, it's not in the traditional values of what America has always been. It's in the idea that America is constantly evolving. If it's not what you want right now, it could be tomorrow, and that's different from other countries. I think that we have a different kind of hope, and that a different sort of thing within that. So it's not about bringing America back to a period of time like we did before. Or sometime in the past. As a country that is continually evolving, moving backwards on the evolutionary process is quite literally killing the very idea of the country. If we are not progressing and we are not moving forward in what we do, despite the fact that maybe a certain political group or political party is in power or whatever else like that, despite that, if we're not constantly moving forward, then we're doing something tremendously wrong in this country. So I think, as we look at those things, try not to get focused on this idea that we used to have a country that did this. Focus on the idea that we have a country that continually evolves, that we continually need to work on to make it a more perfect union. They didn't get everything right, those founding fathers, but that part
No.
was pretty on point. You know, a more perfect union. Let's work towards getting there. And that doesn't happen by separating ourselves. That doesn't happen by being divisive and saying, you believe in this, well, you go over there and I'll stay over here and we won't talk to each other. This is a country that is stronger as it becomes more united in that front as well. Social media, originally a tool to bring us closer, to bring us together, has been used as a tool of opposition. Too much. Okay, we got to get ourselves out of that mentality and get ourselves into a mentality where we're thinking about our neighbors and how everybody that lives here and that has access to this place are moving forward. We're progressing, and I think that we'll be all right given that. But we gotta pay attention. We got to stay awake, folks. We got to stay awake. We're going to wrap it right there. I appreciate folks for tuning in right now. Give us a share if you're still listening to. Give us a share on your timeline in case you think somebody else at a different part of the day could enjoy this content as well. Hopefully Meta doesn't block us. Hopefully they're not listening into this conversation being like, damn, man, they are right now tearing this apart. But no, go ahead and share this content. If they don't like it, we know that it won't be removed from Facebook, Jovan, just simply limited potentially in its scope, but who knows? Give us a share. Let us know what you think. Appreciate everyone that commented in. My homie Julian commenting in. Daryl, I see Daryl commenting in as well. My homies from the Down to Business podcast there. I meant to throw your stuff up there. Appreciate it. My cousin Leon in on the conversation. T, as always, I appreciate you guys. If there were other people that I missed on other platforms, I apologize. But, hey, we appreciate you guys getting in. Please share it and check us out on Spotify. Where's my banner at? Do I have it? There it is. Spotify at A Nicholsworth Pod. That's where you can check out the show. Or, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, that kind of thing, you can check out the replays immediately right there for your enjoyment, for your pleasure, for your consumption, whatever. Jovan, any closing notes before we wrap up this week?
No, I think just the main closing statement and just remark is just basically everything that you said, right? We got to try to move forward and not backwards and just do better as a society. Like, again, we know these social media platforms ain't looking out for us, ain't doing it for, ain't doing things for the better good for us. We have to take it upon ourselves to help each other, right? And not try to fall into this trap of letting these voices that are saying the most outlandish, irrational things that we know aren't true, right? Let's not try to give them light and continue to try to push, forward with, the correct information, with the stuff people need to know, and not, DEI hires and stuff when there's real serious and things happening, when there's wildfires where people's lives are being affected.
Yeah, just try and pay attention. You guys know out there know what's important. You guys know what's real. I believe in that. I believe in you guys. Believe in yourselves as well. Don't just be, don't fall for the okie doke, y'all. Don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe, whatever. We got to stay woke. All right, Jovan Alford, you can catch him on all the platforms at Jovan10, right?
Yes, Jovan 10 on Blue Sky. I think it's like Jovan 10 Blue Sky whatever that is on Blue Sky. I'm still trying to figure that stuff out, but pretty much,
me too.
on there.
I'm on that same type of thing. You can catch me on all the platforms at Keaton D Nichols, and make sure you follow the show at A Nicholsworth. We will see you at a future time and a future date with another very important subject. Until then, we will see y'all later. Peace.